Welcome to the Irresistible You podcast. This is the place to get a dose of empowerment to create the life you crave and deserve. My name is Amy with two E's, and I am the CEO and founder of Irresistible University. Through my podcast and courses, I teach women just like you how to ditch the body image issues, gain confidence, and lose the emotional weight to look and feel irresistible at any size. Welcome to episode 222. What is food noise? Okay, you spoke and I listened. I had sent a poll recently over on Instagram and my broadcast channel, the Confidence Queens broadcast channel. If you don't know what that is, go over to my Instagram at Irresistible Icing and request to join. That is where I send messages periodically when new episodes drop or little tidbits, or we do little polls and things like that. And I promise you, I don't spam. I don't overdo it like some of those channels are doing. But anyway, I had sent a poll asking what episode you wanted to see next. And the one about food noise was the winner. So I am going to dive into that today. I don't know if you have ever heard of this term. Maybe you've heard it recently. I feel that it's gotten a lot more discussion recently with the use of GLP-1 weight loss injections. A lot of people are, talking about this, but if you have been an emotional eater or a binge eater, the majority of your life, you already know what food noise is. You may not have had a term for it though. And here on the podcast, I talk a lot. We have our own little glossary of terms. And one of those things that we talk about a lot on the podcast is what I call the inner fat bitch chatter. And I would say that the inner fat bitch chatter can be very similar to food noise, although the inner fat bitch chatter encompasses the body shaming, the body hate, the tearing yourself down, the beating yourself up as well. So it's not just the food noise. So I'm going to focus specifically on food noise, talk about what it is, talk about how it can dominate your thoughts, why it happens, what it looks like or what it sounds like, what it feels like, and how we can start to overcome it. What are some tools for that? So first and foremost, food noise, when we say that term, this is not an official medical term or anything like that. But what it means is the constant intrusive thoughts about food, about eating, cravings. What's my next meal going to be? What's my next binge going to be? What am I going to have for dinner? What am I going to have for snacks? And one way I would really categorize this to know if you really struggle with food noise is when you're eating. Let's say you're eating lunch as you're listening to this. And as you are chewing your food, you are already consumed with thoughts about what's for dinner, what's for dessert, when you haven't even finished what's on the plate in front of you. I think that is one of the best ways to really understand food noise. And while I have always dealt with this as far back as I can remember, I didn't necessarily call it food noise until pretty recently. I would say the inner fat bitch chatter, and that kind of was all grouped together. But I was talking, and the reason for that is since I started the tirzepatide injections, this really started coming up because those injections help reduce the food noise. And I was asking my husband, when he was hearing that term, he had no idea what we were talking about. He was just like, what? And so for what I quote unquote normal people, normal eaters, people that don't struggle with emotional eating or binge eating, they don't relate to this. They don't understand it. They've never had to deal with it. And if you are someone who's always had to deal with it, you just start to believe that this is just the way it is. This is just the way that everybody is. And that's just not the truth. So food chatter, again, is just this constant battle in your brain between thinking about what you've already eaten, calculating like, okay, so I had this and I had this and I had this, and now I'm gonna eat this later, and having cravings when you're not hungry and giving into those cravings, but also fighting against those cravings. It is like a living hell. It can feel like a living hell. It can feel like you are in a prison consumed by your thoughts about food. And for a lot of people, and myself included, when I first started talking about, when everybody was talking about intuitive eating, remember that was kind of like the buzzword of the year. And I was always talking about how, well, if I could intuitively eat, I wouldn't be overweight in the first place. I don't know how to intuitively eat. I'm getting better at it. The injections are helping me because it's reducing the food noise without having to think about it. However, that constant thinking about it, it's intrusive, right? It just dominates everything that you're thinking about. And I completely lost my train of thought. I swear, it's like I walk in a room sometimes, or I forget what I came in here for, or I have 20 tabs open on my computer and I go to open a tab and look for something and I forgot why I'm there. So I completely lost my train of thought, and we're just gonna get through this. So where does this come from? I think in medical, and I'm not a medical professional, I'm not a scientist, I'm just someone who has dealt with emotional eating my entire life. And I bring my experience to the table on the podcast. So take that what you will, right? I don't think the medical community fully understands food noise because I don't believe they have fully invested the research and the study into obesity, into emotional eating, into binge eating to truly understand everything about it. But from the little bit of research that I have done, they're stating that it is a mix of, and this makes complete sense to me, psychological, biological, environmental factors like stress, your old eating habits, hormones, hormonal imbalances, emotional triggers. So I feel like we kind of know that. We know that, the reason we overeat, emotionally eat, binge eat, there's some kind of emotional, psychological factor in place, right? And we're not going to get into those specifics today, but I just want to give you this platform to understand and to feel validated that food noise is overwhelming. It is utterly exhausting, and it makes it difficult to focus on the other areas of your life when you're constantly consumed with these thoughts. And then it puts you into a spin where the inner fat bitch arrives, right? And what I mean by that is you're having this back and forth all day long about this craving. And you're like, no, I don't want to eat the chocolate. I'm not going to do that. I promise myself I'm back on track. No, you should eat it. It's just one little piece. You can just start over tomorrow morning. And you have this constant devil and angel on your shoulder going back and forth. And when you give in to that craving, the other feelings arrive like failure, shame. I can't believe you. And the inner fat bitch is like, hey girl, I'm here. And she's like, I knew you would do this. I knew you would give in. You're such a fat ass. You're such a loser. You never do what you say you're going to do. You're always going to be on this cycle. Like, she's that voice in your head that's constantly beating you up, telling you you're not good enough, telling you you're a failure. And it creates this ongoing cycle, it's another word in the glossary here, which is the yo-yo diet, body hate, shame cycle. I'll start over tomorrow. I start over today, and now I am falling off the wagon, and I promise myself all these things about tomorrow, and it just keeps the cycle going. And maybe it's not tomorrow, maybe it's next Monday, maybe it's, next month, next year. But these thoughts dominate everything about you. They hold you back in ways that you maybe you never connected the dots to, right? And I talk about this all the time here, how your weight, the thoughts you have about weight, food noise, inner fat bitch, all of those things are interfering with every single aspect of your life. That what you weigh and how you feel in your body is not just about vanity. It becomes how you think about yourself, which in turn is how you present yourself in the world or how you're not presenting yourself in the world. And it's important to understand that. So, what does it sound like? Well, we talked a little bit about that already, and I shared that with you. And I think it's just, I gave that example at the beginning. So I can say what it sounds like for me is that thought where you're sitting there eating and you're already starting to get full, but you're like, oh, this is really good. I just want to keep eating it. And while you're doing that, you're like, shit, what's for dessert? Even though your stomach hurts, even though you're full, you have been nourished. The food has done for you what the food needs to do for you, but you're still thinking about the next thing. What am I going to have for dessert? And as you're eating dessert, it's like, well, what am I going to have tonight? Right? And having fear almost that you won't have something at home. Right? I used to, and I've gotten a lot better at this, but I used to have a thing where when I would go out to eat, I always joke around that I feel sad that my food's going to be gone. Oh my God. Like I feel like as I'm eating the food, I feel sad that the food is about to be gone. Because maybe it's like when you go out to eat at your favorite restaurant, have your favorite meal that you don't always have at home, right? And if you made it at home, it never tastes the same anyway. So you're just feeling sad. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to finish this and I'm not going to be able to have it again for who knows how long. And this feeling of sadness and almost like scarcity, I guess. And so I would get a box, which usually when I go out to eat, I usually have a box to go. I'm not normally able to finish everything that I have. But having this box would give me a sense of comfort. It would give me a sense of, I don't have to be sad yet. I still have the food. And in my brain, I'm like, ooh, when the kids go to sleep and I have, they're asleep and nobody needs me, I'm going to stay up and I'm going to watch a movie and I'm going to watch my show or I'm going to work on my blog or my podcast and I'm going to just, nibble on this food as long as I can to make it last. And I really do that. I've gotten a lot better at it. I think obviously the injections are helping tremendously with the cravings, with the food noise, with even being able to physically finish all the food. So I'll get into that part at the end as well. But that right there is the best example that I can give from a personal standpoint about food noise. Why am I feeling sad about my food being gone? Oh my God. And so when your brain is consumed with these types of thoughts, where is there space for anything else? Where does that space exist? It doesn't leave a lot of space. It doesn't leave a lot of white space in your brain. And a lot of times, one of the things I want you to do as a takeaway is I want you to think about why you had food noise in the first place. And a lot of it is, and we don't do this on a conscious level, right? But a lot of times it can be, well, if I'm consumed with thoughts about my weight and food and, my body, then I don't have to think about the really scary, hard stuff that's going on in my life. I don't have to think about that scary thing that's coming up. I don't have to think about, how I'm going to pay this. I don't have to think about that fight that I just had or, whatever stress trigger thing you have going on, right? If your brain is consumed with this, you don't have to focus on all the other things that need to be fixed. And a lot of times, and most times, emotional eating is a coping mechanism so that you don't have to deal with the real stuff. So then it feels like, well, this is my main thing. This is my only problem because I don't want to think about the stress, the things going on, the sadness, the boredom, the anxiety, right? But staying in this yo-yo diet, body hate, shame cycle is like adding fuel to the fire of your boredom, your sadness, your anxiety, and depression, right? So what do we do about it? How do we get rid of it? What do we do about it? I think the first thing that we have to do is we have to acknowledge that it's even happening in the first place. Because again, how many years, maybe even up till today, how many years have you gone in your life feeling the way I described, right? But not having a name for it, not knowing that it wasn't normal to feel this way, not knowing that not everyone has this. So first and foremost, it's that self-awareness that you have those types of food noise thoughts, acknowledging that you have food noise. And once you can do that, we're not jumping into desperate diet mode, right? Desperate diet culture mode where, oh my God, I got to just get the weight off and this will go away. Here's what I'm going to tell you. If you don't work on the food noise now at your highest weight, the food noise doesn't go away because you get to your goal weight. You're going to be in a smaller body, in your quote unquote dream body, still having this inner battle between, the devil and the angel, whatever you want to call it, good and evil. You are still going to have those inner struggles forever until you make a decision to think about how you're, to change your thoughts in the first place. So number one is we have to acknowledge that it's happening. Number two is we're not jumping into desperate diet mode. We're not doing that because that's not solving anything. That is not solving the emotional weight. And I feel like food noise is definitely wrapped under this umbrella of the emotional weight that we carry. Using food noise as some kind of coping mechanism, a way to zone out, a way to not deal with things, whatever that is. But it contributes to that emotional weight that we carry. So the next thing is I've recognized it. I've said, okay, we're not jumping into desperate diet mode. We're going to stick around and we're going to listen. And that's what I would want you to do first is take out a journal, take out notes, a note app on your phone, whatever it looks like for you, and start journaling what you're thinking. What are the thoughts that you're having? Because you can't change something until you know what it is. So it's being more self-aware of what you're thinking. And this is the epitome of this podcast is we constantly talk about in order to lose the emotional weight, you got to change your thoughts. Because your thoughts drive your action, or your thoughts drive your feelings drive your actions, right? I think to myself that, oh my God, I'm so sick of feeling this way. This is horrible. Like, I don't know why I keep thinking about food. And now I feel defeated. And when I feel defeated, what do? I don't do anything. I crawl into my hole and I don't take action. So that's what I mean by thoughts, feelings, action. So start writing it down, start paying attention. And the other piece to that is listening to hunger cues. If you have struggled with food noise for most of your life, if not all of your life, I bet you don't know what real hunger feels like. I bet you don't know what real fullness feels like. I bet you don't know those things because you haven't been tuning into your body. And that's why back in the day, I was like, intuitive eating, what the hell is that? Like, you've got to slow down, turn off the TV, turn off the computer, turn off the phone, and tune into yourself. Are you actually hungry? And in this phase of it, I'm not telling you to do anything. I'm just saying, tune in, listen, write it down, journal it, and then we can make some decisions from there. When you're having these intrusive thoughts, the next question I would ask is, am I actually hungry? Am I hungry for food or am I hungry for something else? Because again, certain feelings are driving this for us. Boredom, anxiety, sadness, depression, stress. And that's the first piece of it, right? Is we got to get self-aware. We have to listen. We have to write these things down. And then we can move into taking more action, right? So if I'm having these thoughts, and this takes a lot of work, you guys, this is by no means something simple and easy. It seems like it's simple, but it's not easy. The concept is simple, but it's not easy. And it takes a lot of practice, a lot of repetition, a lot of, feeling frustrated, feeling pissed off, feeling like you're coming out of your skin almost when you're having these cravings. But having these conversations with yourself about, what am I really craving? What do I really want right now? Why do I feel like I can't not dip into the Reese's Pieces? Why does it feel like if I don't have this piece of chocolate cake, I'm going to explode? Why? What's really going on here? And sometimes there's a sense of entitlement, selfishness that comes, it's like the inner fat bitch stuff, where it's like, I want it because I want it. Okay, but you also say you want to lose weight. You also say you're tired of feeling the way you do in your body. So which one are we choosing here? Which one? Because we can't have both at the same time. We can have cravings. We can give in to cravings. Absolutely. We can eat what we want to eat, but we can't binge. We can't give in to every emotional craving every single time and expect to lose our weight at the same time. Moderation, moderation, moderation. So, and it's what I preach here on the podcast, is that you have to have something else other than food to look forward to. If all you're looking forward to is hunkering down on the couch and eating your leftovers or your chocolate cake or whatever it is, and you don't have anything else bringing you joy or making you feel fulfilled or creative or useful or whatever word, whatever that thing is that's missing for you, because there's something missing. And over the last couple of years, it has been really hard for me. When I went from one child to two children during a pandemic, and 7 months later found out my oldest has type 1 diabetes, and by oldest, she was 4 at that time. Those of you that have been here with me for a while, my story, you know what's been going on. And for a couple of years, it was just really hard. I'm still adjusting. I'm much more adjusted to it. But there's times where I'm still adjusting and things still throw me for a loop, whether it's with the two, having two children, or whether it's something with diabetes going on. And let me tell you, there's days where it's all going on. Yesterday was one of them. Like, Javi was having a tantrum, like out of control tantrum, because I didn't want him hanging his bag of sharks from my blinds. Okay. I was like, no, we're not doing that. Let's take that down. You can put it somewhere else. I do not need a heavy bag of sharks hanging off my freaking blinds. So he's flipping out, going crazy, having to, 3.5-year-olds are next level stuff. Okay. He's having a fit. Meanwhile, because I'm so focused on that, I don't realize that Catalina's blood sugar is tanking. She is now at 50 double arrows down. That is a serious low. That could turn dangerous real fast. So now I'm juicing her up, fruit snacking her up, getting her to get her blood sugar up. I'm also checking her finger as well to make sure that the sensor is correct. And it was, and so after that kind of shit happens, my central nervous system is like, what the F just happened? I need a break. I need a moment here. And then it's like, the kids are good. They're back to normal. They want play with me, do this. No, I still need a moment. I'm still recovering from whatever the fuck that just was. And this happens multiple times a week. So recognize what that looks like in your life. What are those things that wreck your nervous system? What are those things that, you're maybe having a hard time balancing sometimes? And don't feel guilty about it. Especially if you're a mom, do not feel guilty that it is emotionally draining, because it is. It is one of the most emotionally rewarding I don't like using the word job, but like experiences in your life. And it is also one of the most emotionally draining experiences of your life. If you know, you know. And it's okay to recognize that, because being a parent is not easy. And you keep thinking, well, when they get to this age, it'll be easier. I'll be able to do this. Well, yeah, you might sleep through the night. Thank God for that, right? Sometimes. But then you have other things that come up with each age group. So even if you have adult children, like there's still things that happen. Every season looks different. But you've got to recognize like what's going on in your life that could trigger you, that maybe you are stress eating from, emotionally eating from. Because yeah, like it's so easy for that shit to happen, what I just described in my life, and to be like, oh my God, they're in bed. I'm going to just go balls to the wall with the food. And I don't do that anymore. I really don't. Like, I don't want the food. I don't crave it. Like I might have something here and there, but, we're not ordering food when the kids go to sleep. When we were doing that for a while, like on the weekends and stuff. And Frank and I did that the other weekend for the first time in like a while. And we both got something. And I was even telling you guys lately, sometimes when we order food, we've been sharing like something. We both ordered something and we're like, oh my God, like it's been a while since we were like in this habit. So you've got to become self-aware. Self-awareness is such a big piece to this. And you also have to have other things to look forward to. And all of this is wrapped up in the 5 guiding principles of the Irresistible You framework. Those guiding principles are break the rules, make confidence queen, be in the moment, feed your soul, and get your glam on. I'm not going to get into those because there's plenty of episodes that do that, as well as my course, as well as my free action plan. So if you're not already on my email list and you don't have the action plan, I have a link in the show notes. Sign up. You'll get a PDF you can download, and it's got some questions and some descriptions about each of those guiding principles. So I would definitely check that out. So people are saying if you're on Ozempic, Mounjaro, Zepbound, semaglutide, tirzepatide, whichever one you're taking, that's the easy way out. Let me tell you something. There is no easy way out of obesity. Whether you lose your weight through diet and exercise, that is very hard. Whether you lose your weight through gastric bypass surgery, that is very hard. Or whether you lose your weight through injections, that is also very hard. Because you still have to do the mental and emotional work that comes with any of those methodologies. Okay? So getting on an injection doesn't mean you took the easy way out. It doesn't mean the food noise is like completely gone. It doesn't mean you never get cravings. It doesn't mean the weight falls off. Okay? I will say this. The GLP-1 injections, which encompasses all the things, they do work. They do eliminate some of the food noise. They reduce it. And I will say from my experience, it was very subtle. It wasn't like, I've heard people say, oh, I started taking it and it was like the room got turned off, right? Or the lights came on and the noise stopped. For me, it wasn't like that. It was a subtle, like one day I'm just like, oh, wow, like I'm not really thinking about food. Or I would go to open the refrigerator after the kids go to sleep and I'm like, I don't want anything. Or I'll think about like, well, I should get something. Well, no, I don't really want anything. I'm not hungry. But those old habits of wanting to eat just because we want to eat. So it does assist in the process, but you still have to do the things I just mentioned. That is still a thing you have to do because you want to get to a place where you have, worked on how you think about yourself, how you think about food, how you don't think about food. That relationship between yourself and food and what it means. The injections aren't going to remove that. it's like having a assistance, right? It's giving you a boost. It's giving you an assistant to be like, okay, now that those thoughts aren't consuming my brain, I can tune into the hunger cues. I can tune into the full, like, do I feel full? Am I actually hungry? It makes it easier to make better choices. You don't feel, it starts to help with that emotional attachment to food where, you know how like if somebody's like, are you hungry? Like, well, I could eat, right? You're not hungry. And they get something to eat and you get something because they do. And then you're like, oh my God, why did I eat this? Because you felt like if you didn't order the food, you would be missing out on something. You would feel sad that you're going to miss out on that food. Where there's been times I get something from my kids because they're hungry, whether we order to the house or we go out somewhere and we're doing things, and I don't get anything. And I don't feel like I'm missing out. I don't feel sad about it. So I am not a medical doctor. This is something you got to talk to with a medical professional and ask if this is something that's going to work for you. But understand it's not an easy way out. Okay? And there's still days where the food noise is there. It doesn't always go away, especially around your cycle. Like, I took a break from the injections not too long ago, and I noticed, holy cannoli, like, this is crazy. Like, what the hell is going on? Like, it came back. And so I think no matter what you decide in your weight loss, there is no easy way out. And stop giving a shit what other people think. I don't give a shit what anybody thinks. If you don't like that I'm taking injections, bye. Bye. It was nice having you here. I don't care because I'm going to do me and I'm going to do what works for me. And that's it. Like, so let's think about it this week with the food noise. Is this something you struggle with? Do you have it? Let's get self-aware about it. Let's start journaling about it. Let's start, tuning into it. That's what's really important here. And, again, however you need to lose your weight is how you need to lose your weight. What I don't believe in is desperate dieting. I don't believe in doing things that you're not willing to do the rest of your life. So it takes as long as it takes. And that's another thing I preach here is like, we don't need a timeline. We don't, oh my God, I gotta lose 30 pounds by the cruise. I gotta lose 30 pounds by the family reunion. I gotta lose 30 pounds for this wedding to fit in this dress, to show off for a bunch of people that I don't even give a shit about. Like, we don't need to do that. We need to spend the time up front on the front end to reduce the food noise, reduce the emotional weight, improve the relationship we have with ourselves so that we can lose the weight and we can lose the weight for the last time. I will also add, this is in the show notes as well, if the GLP-1 injections are something that you're on the fence about and you want to research that or you're ready to, jump in and do it, I have a telehealth company that I work with that I'm not sponsored by anyway, but I work with them. They have a monthly plan. You can get your medication. They can also help you with insurance things as well. The problem with insurance is a lot of insurance companies will not cover these medications, mine included, but there are other options available. So they're called Mochi Health. I will link them in the show notes. And I also have a code. So if you decide to sign up, that will get you $40 off your first month. So definitely take advantage of that if you're on the fence or you're thinking about doing it. But I am going to go ahead and wrap this episode up. Head on over to the podcast group. We have a Facebook group for podcast discussions. It was dormant for quite a while because I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. I have started to post there again. I would like to get that back up and running so that every week when there's an episode, we have a post that accompanies that episode in the group where you can share thoughts. I'll have a prompt to make a discussion around it. And, it's nice and it's great to listen to a podcast, but it's a whole nother thing to then take that information and that learning and apply it in your life. And so with the podcast group, that is my hope. So that link is in the show notes, or you can just search Irresistible You Podcast in Facebook, request to join the group. I'll get you in there. You can also keep up with me on Instagram at Irresistible Icing. That is my favorite social media where I hang out the most. I share a lot of stories. I do more stories than I do anything else. So head on over there. And again, the link to the free action plan is in the show notes as well. So we are going to go ahead and wrap this up. I will catch you in the next episode. Until then, stay irresistible. Bye, guys.